Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into a bond that, honestly, you don't see every day. It's more than just brotherhood. It's a connection that has had a huge impact on history and continues to inspire so many people even today.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be talking about the relationship between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
And we've got some fascinating stuff to work with. You've provided us with some key Quranic verses and Islamic traditions, and I'm really curious to see what we can discover about this connection by looking at them.
I think you'll be pretty surprised by what we find. It's a deep and complex relationship.
Well, I'm ready to dive in, but first I think it's important to set the stage a little bit. Can you remind us about the significance of these two figures in Islam? For our listeners who might not be as familiar with the details.
Of course. So, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as I'm sure many know, is the final prophet of Islam. He brought the Quran to humanity, and his message has transformed the world and continues to guide billions of people.
And Imam Ali, peace be upon him, besides being his cousin and son-in-law, is considered the first imam by many.
Absolutely, but it goes way beyond just family ties. There's something much deeper there. I think a good place to start understanding this is with what's known as the tradition of the pool, or Ghadir Khumm. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, Ghadir Khumm. I've definitely heard of it.
Well,
Could you give us a quick recap?
absolutely. So picture this. It's 632 CE. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is on his way back from Hajj, the farewell pilgrimage.
His last Hajj.
Right, his last Hajj. And as he's traveling back to Medina, he stops the entire Muslim community at a place called Ghadir Khumm.
He stops everyone. Wow, that must have been quite the sight. What was so important that he had to stop everyone right then and there?
This is where things get really interesting. Standing in front of everyone, he delivers a sermon and appoints Imam Ali, peace be upon him, as his successor.
You mean as the leader of the Muslims after him?
Exactly. And to emphasize just how important this appointment was, he says something that has become one of the most famous sayings in Islamic history. He said, "For whomever I am his Mawla, Ali is his Mawla."
Mawla. Now, I know that word can have a few different meanings, but what's the main idea here?
In this context, it signifies a deep level of authority and guardianship. It shows that Imam Ali, peace be upon him, is not just a successor, but also a protector and guide for the Muslim community.
So Ghadir Khumm is clearly a defining moment in their relationship.
It really is.
But I'm guessing it's not the only piece of evidence we have, right? Are there other sources that can help us understand this connection?
Definitely. Let's look at the verse of Mubahala, which is in Surah Al-Imran, verse 61.
Okay, now, for those who might not know, what exactly is Mubahala, and why is this verse so important?
Sure. Basically, a group of Christian scholars challenged Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to a spiritual contest. It was a pretty intense thing. They were going to gather their closest people and essentially pray for God's curse to befall whoever was lying.
Wow, that's a serious test of faith. So, who did Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, choose to stand with him? I mean, in a situation like that, you'd want the people you trust most, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what he did. He chose his daughter, Fatima, peace be upon her, his grandsons, Hassan and Hussein, peace be upon them, and significantly, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, his family, basically.
That's a really powerful image. It says a lot about how much he trusted them and how close they were, especially Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
Right. And what's even more remarkable is that when the Christian scholars saw this display of unity and faith, they backed out. They refused to go through with the Mubahala. They recognized the spiritual weight the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his family carried.
It's almost like a divine confirmation, a testament to their righteousness. And it really emphasizes how close Imam Ali, peace be upon him, was to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him.
Exactly. If we keep looking at the Quran, we find another interesting clue in Surah Al-Asab, verse 33.
What does that verse tell us?
This verse states that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, has a greater claim on the believers than they do on themselves.
It's a pretty deep concept. What does that actually mean?
Well, it means that Muslims must have absolute respect and obedience to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. But it also hints at something deeper, the idea of guardianship, or Wilayah, in Islam.
So it's about following the prophets, peace and blessings be upon him, teachings, but also recognizing that there needs to be a designated guide to continue that guidance after he's gone.
Exactly. And as we've seen with Ghadir Khumm, that role is given to Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
Right. It's like this verse is setting the stage for the idea of continued leadership and guidance within the Muslim community.
You're getting it. This verse, along with others in the traditions we've already talked about, reinforces the idea that Prophet Muhammad's peace and blessings be upon him influence was meant to continue even after his death. Someone had to carry on his legacy.
And who better than someone who was so incredibly close to him during his life?
Yeah. You're on the right track. There are actually some verses that focus specifically on this theme of delivering the message. For example, verse 67 of Surah Al-Ma'idah and verse 3 of Surah Al-Imran both emphasize how important it was for Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to convey God's message fully and accurately.
So it wasn't just about saying the words, it was about making sure the message was truly understood.
That's exactly it. This was a massive responsibility, and it makes you wonder, who would be better suited to carry on that responsibility than the person who was closest to him, the one who shared his life, his struggles, and his spiritual journey?
I think you're leading me to a very specific hadith here. The one comparing their relationship to that of Prophets Musa and Harun, peace be upon them.
Yeah, you got it. The hadith where Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, says, Ali is to me as Harun, peace be upon him, was to Musa, peace be upon him, except there is no prophet after me. Sahih al-Bukhari.
Right. But for those who might not be as familiar with the story of Musa and Harun, peace be upon them, what's the main point here?
Well, in that story, Harun, peace be upon him, was Prophet Musa's, peace be upon him, brother. But he was also his spokesperson, his confidant, his right-hand man, and he was divinely appointed to help Musa, peace be upon him, with his mission. So by comparing Imam Ali, peace be upon him, to Harun, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is showing us that their relationship was a divinely ordained partnership.
And of course, that line at the end, except there is no prophet after me, is important too, right? Just to make sure there's no misunderstanding about Imam Ali's peace be upon him role.
Absolutely. It makes it clear that although their bond is incredibly unique and divinely ordained, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, is not a prophet himself. It's a subtle but important distinction.
It's almost like a spiritual inheritance, passing the torch to the person best suited to carry on the mission.
A great way to put it. And, even the Quran seems to echo this idea. Verse 87 of Surah Al-An'am, for example, lists a number of prophets, including Musa and Harun, peace be upon them.
Interesting. Do you think that could be a hint? A subtle way of reinforcing the idea that prophetic missions often have these divinely appointed individuals supporting them? Just like the bond between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
It's definitely possible. Remember, the Quran often uses stories from the past to teach us timeless lessons. This could be one of those instances.
Wow, this is fascinating. The more we look at these sources, the clearer this picture of a deep, divinely ordained connection becomes.
It really does, doesn't it?
What other sources do we have that can shed more light on this bond?
Well, we're talking about legacies and guidance, so we definitely can't forget the Prophet's peace and blessings be upon him last sermon, the one he delivered during his final pilgrimage. It was full of important advice for the future of the Muslim community.
I can only imagine how powerful that sermon must have been, knowing it was his last message to them. What were some of the key points he emphasized?
Two things stand out. He stressed how crucial it was to adhere to the Quran, obviously, but he also emphasized the importance of following his Ahlul Bayt, his family.
So in his last message to the community, he puts his family right alongside the Quran. That's a pretty bold statement. Why do you think he did that?
I think it shows how important he believed their role was in guiding the Muslims after he was gone. It's another piece of evidence pointing to the special position his family holds, especially, of course, Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
It's all starting to come together now.
Yeah.
Are there any other interesting insights we can find in these sources?
There's a really thought-provoking verse in Surah Az-Zukhruf, verse 43. God asks, "And ask those of our apostles whom we sent before you, did we ever appoint gods to be worshipped besides the beneficent God?" 43.43.
That's an interesting question. But how does it relate to the relationship between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him? I'm not quite seeing the connection.
Well, there's an interpretation by Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, peace be upon him, that connects this verse to the Prophet's, peace and blessings be upon him, miraculous night journey, the Miraj.
Oh, right, the Miraj. Can you remind us what happened during that journey?
During the Miraj, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, ascended through the heavens and met with all the prophets who came before him. He even led them in prayer. It was an incredibly significant and powerful spiritual experience.
So this verse, seen through the lens of the Miraj, emphasizes the connection between all the prophets. But how does that relate to Imam Ali, peace be upon him?
Well, it emphasizes how unique Prophet Muhammad's peace and blessings be upon him status is as the final prophet, the seal of the prophets. And if he holds such an elevated position, wouldn't it make sense that the person closest to him, his chosen successor, would also have a very special position?
Ah, I see your point. The significance of one kind of reinforces the significance of the other.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Ghadir Khumm, the verse of Mubahala, this idea of Wilayah.
We've only just scratched the surface.
And we're already out of time for this part of our deep dive. But don't worry, we'll be back soon to continue exploring this fascinating topic.
O God, O He through whose mercy sinners seek aid, O He to the remembrance of whose beneficence the distressed flee, O He in fear of whom the offenders weep, O comfort of every lonely stranger, O relief of all who are downcast and distressed, O aid of everyone abandoned and alone, O support of every needy outcast. You are He who embraces everything in mercy and knowledge. You are He who have appointed for each creature a share of your favors. You are He whose pardon is higher than His punishment. You are He whose mercy runs before His wrath. You are He whose bestowal is greater than His withholding. You are He by whose mercy all creatures are embraced. You are He who desires no repayment by him upon whom He bestows. You are He who does not overdo the punishment of him who disobeys you. And I, my God, am your servant whom you commanded to supplicate, and who said, I am at your service and disposal. Here am I, my Lord, thrown down before you. I am he whose back offenses have weighed down. I am he whose lifetime sins have consumed. I am he who was disobedient in his ignorance, while you did not deserve that from him. Will you, my God, be merciful toward him who supplicates you, that I should bring my supplication before you? Will you forgive him who weeps to you, that I should hurry to weep? Will you show forbearance toward him who puts his face in the dust before you in lowliness? Will you free from need him who complains to you of his indigent need with confidence? My God, disappoint not him who finds no bestower other than you, and abandon not him who cannot be freed from his need for you through less than you. My God, so bless Muhammad and his household. Turn not away from me when I have turned my face toward you. Deprive me not when I have besought you, and slap not my brow with rejection when I have stood before you. You are he who has described himself by mercy. So bless Muhammad and his household, and have mercy upon me. You are he who has named himself by pardon, so pardon me.
There's so much more to uncover.
It's amazing how all of these examples point to the same idea. This need for guidance, for a source of authority, even after Prophet Muhammad's peace and blessings be upon him, passing.
Right. It's like a common thread running through everything we've been talking about. You see it in Ghadir Khumm when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, clearly names Imam Ali, peace be upon him, as his successor.
And then there's the verse of Mubahala, which really shows us how close they were spiritually.
Exactly. And even that verse from Surah Al-Asab, the one about Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, having the greatest claim on the believers. In a way, it hints at the need for ongoing guidance within the Muslim community.
And then those verses about the Prophet's peace and blessings be upon him, duty to convey God's message clearly. It's almost like he was setting the stage for someone to continue that crucial work.
You're absolutely right. And who better to carry on that mission than the person he compared to Harun, peace be upon him, in relation to Musa, peace be upon him. It's like we're putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle, and each of these verses and traditions is a piece that fits perfectly to reveal this image of a truly special and divinely ordained connection.
Speaking of fitting things together, there's this saying attributed to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that I find really interesting. He said, I am the city of knowledge, and Ali, peace be upon him, is its gate.
That's such a powerful way to put it. It captures how knowledge and guidance were understood in those early days of Islam.
So it's not just about political leadership, it's about inheriting and protecting a vast amount of knowledge.
Exactly. It suggests that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, passed on his wisdom and teachings to Imam Ali, peace be upon him, in a really deep and meaningful way.
Which reminds me of something we touched on earlier, the idea that Imam Ali peace be upon him, will be questioned on the Day of Judgment about how he safeguarded the Prophet's, peace and blessings be upon him, knowledge. It shows you just how heavy that responsibility is.
Absolutely. And it leads us to another really important aspect we can find in these sources, the concept of taqwa.
Taqwa. Now, that's a word I've heard a lot, but I think it would be helpful to unpack it a little bit. In the context of our discussion, what does taqwa mean? And how does it relate to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him?
Good question. Taqwa is often translated as God consciousness or righteousness. It's about striving to live your life in a way that pleases God, always being mindful of him, no matter what you're doing.
Okay, I see. But how does that tie into their bond, their relationship?
Well, if you look at the traditions, you see that both Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him, were known for their incredible taqwa. They had this unwavering faith and devotion.
So it wasn't just family or politics that connected them. It was this shared spiritual journey, this deep commitment to achieving the highest level of taqwa.
Exactly. And I think their shared pursuit of taqwa actually strengthens the argument for Imam Ali's, peace be upon him, position as the rightful guide for the Muslim community. Think about it. If taqwa is the ultimate goal, and these two individuals were such perfect examples of it, wouldn't it make sense to follow their lead, to learn from them?
That's a really interesting point. It's like they're setting the standard, showing everyone what's possible when you dedicate your life to God.
That's it, exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of their relationship. The role of love. In Islam, love, especially love for God, isn't just a feeling, it's a driving force, a way of life.
I'm intrigued. What do you mean by love being more than just a feeling?
In Islam, the highest form of love is the love for God. And from that love flows the love for Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, his family, and everything that is good and righteous.
So it's almost like a hierarchy of love with love for God at the top.
You could put it that way. Loving Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his family is seen as a natural extension of loving God.
So if you truly love God, you will naturally love those who are closest to him, those whom he has chosen.
Exactly. And that's what we see in the bond between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him. Their relationship was rooted in this profound, all-encompassing love for God.
It wasn't just family love or friendship. It was something much deeper than that, something that went beyond those categories. A love that came from their shared devotion and their unwavering faith.
And that love is something we see reflected in their actions, their sacrifices, the way they supported each other through thick and thin. It's a love that continues to inspire people even today.
It's amazing to think that a love that began centuries ago can still have such a powerful impact on people all over the world.
It really is. It shows us the lasting legacy of these two incredible figures. And I think it's important to remember that this love isn't just something we read about in history books. It's something we can cultivate within ourselves.
You're absolutely right. It's a reminder that we can all strive to love God with all our hearts. And from that love, we can learn to extend that love to those he has chosen, those who truly embody his teachings.
And that's one of the most beautiful lessons we can take away from exploring this bond between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him. It's a call to action, an invitation for all of us to embark on our own spiritual journeys, to seek knowledge, to cultivate taqwa, and to fill our hearts with love for God and all that is good.
I'm honestly amazed by how much there is to talk about when it comes to this relationship. It feels like we've just dipped our toes in the water.
I know what you mean. We could literally spend days talking about all the layers and nuances. What we've done today is just a tiny glimpse into this huge, complex world of Islamic thought and history.
It's like we've been given a map to this incredible treasure, and now it's up to us to go explore it and find all the hidden gems. And speaking of hidden gems, did you come across anything in your research that particularly stood out to you? Anything that really caught your eye?
Actually, yeah, there is something. I came across this really interesting narration attributed to Imam Jafar as Sadiq, peace be upon him. He was a descendant of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and a really well-known scholar.
Oh, interesting. What did Imam as Sadiq, peace be upon him, have to say about this special bond between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him?
He said, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that Ali, peace be upon him, was the very first person to believe in God and his messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and he never worshipped anything other than God.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. It really makes him stand out, even amongst all those early Muslims who were so close to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him.
It really does. It speaks to this incredible faith that was there from the very beginning, unwavering and pure. Remember, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, embraced Islam when he was still very young, and that commitment never wavered throughout his entire life.
It's not just about being the first in terms of time, it's about how deep and how pure his faith was. I mean, you have to wonder, how did that unshakable belief shape his understanding of Islam?
It's a great question, and it takes us right back to what we've been talking about all along, this idea of divine guidance. If Imam Ali, peace be upon him, had such a profound faith at such a young age, wouldn't that make him the perfect guide for others who are trying to find that same connection with God?
I see what you mean. It's like if you really want to learn about something, the best person to teach you is the one who understands it the most deeply.
Exactly. And think about it. Isn't teaching and guiding a vital part of leadership, especially when it comes to something as profound as faith?
That's a really good point. A true leader is not just someone who holds a position of power. A true leader is someone who inspires, who guides, who helps others grow. And that's what we see so clearly in both Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him.
Absolutely. They were leaders in the truest sense of the word, not just in a worldly sense, but as spiritual mentors. They led by example, inspiring their community through their words, their actions, and their unwavering devotion to God.
It's important to acknowledge here that there are different perspectives within Islam, and not everyone interprets these verses and traditions in exactly the same way.
That's an important reminder. Islam is a vast and diverse religion, and there's room for different schools of thought and interpretations.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is to approach these discussions with respect, with an open mind, and with a genuine desire to learn and understand.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap up our deep dive on. We've explored so much, but like we said before, we've just scratched the surface.
Ghadir Khumm, the verse of Mubahala, this idea of Wilayah, the importance of Taqwa, the role of love. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more to uncover.
So we encourage all of you listening to keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep learning. This journey of trying to understand the bond between Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Imam Ali, peace be upon him, is a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. It's a journey that can enrich your life in so many ways.
What a beautiful way to put it. And who knows, maybe someday we'll come back to this topic and dive even deeper. There's always more to learn.
I'd love that. Until then, stay curious, keep exploring, and keep that love of learning alive.
And as always, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.
You have seen, my God, the flow of my tears in fear of you, the throbbing of my heart in dread of you, and the infirmity of my limbs in awe of you, all this from my shame before you because of my evil works. So my voice has become silent, no longer crying to you, and my tongue has gone dumb, no longer whispering in prayer. My God, so to you belongs praise. How many of my flaws you have covered over without exposing me? How many of my sins you have cloaked without making me notorious? How many faults I have committed, yet you did not tear away from me their covering, collar me with their detested disgrace, or make their dishonor plain to those of my neighbors who search for my defects, and to those who envy your favor toward me. But that did not prevent me from passing on to the evil that you know from me. But I, my God, am more numerous in sins, uglier in footsteps, more repulsive in acts, more reckless in rushing into falsehood, weaker in awakening to your obedience, and less attentive and heedful toward your threats, than that I could number for you my faults or have the power to recount my sins. I only scold my own soul, craving your gentleness, through which the affairs of sinners are set right, and hoping for your mercy, through which the necks of the offenders are freed. O God, this is my neck enslaved by sins. Bless Muhammad and his household and release it through your pardon. This is my back, weighed down by offenses. Bless Muhammad and his household and lighten it through your kindness.